Mr. Denis Vaden. He's a friend, a very good friend of 𝑣𝑖𝑡𝑠. He has helped particularly in our postgraduate program. We have been running a postgraduate program on business planning, and Denis has been instrumental in helping us externally examine that program and actually encourage engineers in their creative and entrepreneurial skills. So my relationship with Denis has actually been through 𝑣𝑖𝑡𝑠, but he's been a real inspiration as well. We would like to call him a serial entrepreneur, but he's also an executive coach and very much an inspirational speaker. So I'd like to call on Denis to come and speak to us for 15 minutes and hopefully inspire us all to do even better. Thank you, Denis.
Thank you very much for having me here. I always get a little worried when I get the microphone unsupervised. It's never a very good thing. I think I've been best man 5 or 6 times. I can't forget MC 3 or 4 times, and it's always a little intimidating. You never know who the room is, you're not sure who you're speaking to, so if I am a little nervous or if I do stumble a bit, I might just stop and carry on if that's okay. I sometimes wonder why people invite me to these things, and I do get invitations fairly often in a weird way. I am firstly honoured and grateful to be here. I love what you said earlier around excellence and perseverance, because that's really a lot of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And how would that apply to me, I guess, is the real question. So my story, let me give you a little bit of the background. I started working when I was 13 years old. I was working 6 days a week as a waiter. We never grew up poor. My parents were both immigrants. They came from Greece. We always had just enough. There was always food in the house. There was enough around. And my father went bankrupt at a fairly early age. So I was 13 when this happened, and I needed to step up and contribute to the family. So I started working 6 days a week. I worked as a waiter. Call it Drive in those days, a little restaurant called 𝑃𝑟𝑜𝑑𝑢𝑐𝑒𝑑. And what was amazing was I still attended school. I went to King Edward's, obviously finished my matric there, but I probably didn't take my studies as seriously as I should have. I think I had a level of independence at a very early age that a lot of people don't have. I was earning my own income, I was supporting my family, I was able to save. One of my founding principles now is what Socrates said, which is the only thing I truly know is I know nothing. And I literally base my whole life on that statement, because the minute I have any new information, it changes my whole foundation of the information that I knew before. So going back to where I was, worked 6 days a week. I've never worked for anyone in my life. I'm now 45 years old. Age of 17 and a half, when I matriculated, I bought my first Steers outlet, which was a franchise, obviously, that I think most of you have had a burger at. The way I did it was quite weird. I didn't really have the money to buy it. I'd saved 50,000 Rand 1994, which is a fair amount of money, between my brother and I, who came out of the army. He'd been in the permanent force and was an aircraft mechanic. So I think anyone that does aeronautical engineering here would have some feel for that. He literally worked on the planes. So this Steers was for sale in Randburg. It was for sale for 250,000 Rand, which was an obscene amount of money. We went to this guy and we said it was losing 5,000 Rand a month. So every month this business was losing money. We really knew nothing. We were cowboys. What we didn't know was probably one of our biggest benefits at this stage. So we offered this gentleman by the name of Peter 50,000 Rand to buy his business. And we said, we'll give you 50,000 Rand, and we will then pay you 5,000 Rand a month to finish the 250,000 Rand. And if we miss one payment, you can take our 50,000 Rand and you can take a shot back. So he obviously thought that this was going to be the easiest 50,000 Rand he's ever made. It obviously worked out a little bit contrary. We managed to turn that shop around in about 3 months. We were literally losing 10,000 Rand from the first day a month because we had to pay 5,000 Rand and we were losing 5. But we turned it around within 3 months. 2 years later, sold the store at a really big profit. I mean, in those days, 900,000 Rand, huge amount of money. And my story sort of evolved from then. We bought another Steers in Natal. At the age of 21, I had 80 staff. It was a 24-hour outlet. I lived on vitamin B injections, Diet Cokes, and cigarettes. It was literally my life. I used to smoke. I haven't smoked for 8 years, just so everyone knows, but I used to smoke about 60 to 80 a day, and 80 staff was interesting. You know, at the age of 19, I was 19 when I bought that store. 24 hours, 18-hour days, very interesting experience. Even to this day, if I'm ever going through anything really difficult, I just put myself back into that situation and I think of what I needed to do and I go, sure, I'm so lucky, so grateful and so privileged to be in my situation. While that happened, I got involved in double-decker buses. The council in Natal needed someone to run them, so I was running double-decker buses. Then I was like, ooh, double-decker buses is quite a cool thing, and I used to find them in Johannesburg, buy them for like 20, 30 grand in those days, take them down to Natal, fix them, and sell them to SAB, Play Energy in those days. I sold 5 buses for about 300,000 Rand, which again was an obscene amount of money. How do you sell a double-decker bus? I don't really know. Like, I don't know how I sold it in those days. I'd like phone the marketing side of the companies. I'd be like, hey, how you doing? Do you need a double-decker bus? What? You know, who can I speak to within your department that would want to buy a double-decker bus? And eventually I figured out that marketing was the way you wanted to go. So I bought and sold some buses, sold the Steers outlet, bought a coffee shop in the Lucia Mall, turned that shop around quite nicely, got involved in a furniture factory, weirdly enough, 700 square meter factory, 30 staff. We're probably making the best furniture you have ever seen in your existence. We had the old Italian guy hand carving the stuff in the corner. We had the 30 staff members, equipment everywhere. And it was interesting because at the age of 28, I lost everything. So everything, for all of you, any of you who've been in your own businesses, you'll understand what jointly and severably liable is. For all of you that haven't been in your own businesses will realize that jointly and severably liable is a swear word if you have partners that all go in different directions. So there were 4 partners. I was left holding the candle. One of them being a family member who lost an obscene amount of money in the casino at one night, which was all our cash flow. So we wake up one morning and there's no cash in the account, and Dennis is sort of the guy holding the candle. Everyone scatters to the wind. So kind of really long story short, I could have done what most people do, which is liquidate and then sequestrate. Sequestrate means that you start from scratch, you ruin your name, you're not able to have a bank account. And what my father taught me, my father was an amazing human. And one of the things that he taught me was confidence in oneself. You know, he always said to me, Dennis, you will never work for anyone. You will always work for yourself, and you will always be able to figure out a way to do things for yourself. And in this regard, he also taught me, never stuff up your name. Your name is your only thing that you're going to keep until you die. It's your reputation, it's the way people relate to you, it's the way you're going to be able to do things in the future. So I didn't want to stuff up my name, from my dad's terminology. I went into agreements with each one of the creditors and I said to all of them that I would pay you back in X amount of time. Weirdly enough, I got involved in a nightclub, which in those days was probably the busiest nightclub that Joburg's seen. We used to do 3,000 people a night. It was a club called Tiger that most people probably wouldn't remember in this room. But what it did is it managed to pay all my debts off in 2 years. So I paid that 2 million Rand off in 2 years. And I started my coffee business because I wasn't kitted for nightclubs. It's a easy, difficult industry. It can go to your head quite easily. Your ego can grow. It's probably the easiest business I've ever run, but I didn't really like myself when I was in it. I had to get out, but I did it for a reason. I needed to pay my way and pay back the debts that I'd incurred. So It was about 2 years, year and a half to 2 years, so I mixed my timelines a little bit, that I paid all of that money back and I had 30,000 Rand left over. With that 30,000 Rand, I started my coffee business in the spare room of my house with 2 boxes of coffee. And I still remember my mate coming into the room and he saw the 2 boxes of coffee and my laptop. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "No, I've started a coffee business." He's like, "What do you mean?" "A coffee business." I'm like, "No, coffee business, in my boxes of coffee." So he's like, "What do you know about coffee?" I said, "Nothing. I don't know anything about coffee." So he's like, "Well, okay, fine. I guess you'll be in the next business a little while, but you're going to be out or, you're going to be looking for a job." It's like, "Cool, yeah, I think I'll be looking for a job." And then what I did is, I went out and sold the coffee. And the way I learned how to sell coffee was I would learn from each one of my customers. So I'd go to the first customer and I'd be onion, like nothing. I'd be like, "Sure, taste this coffee, what do you think?" He'd be like, "Yo, your coffee tastes a little bit like dark chocolate." And then I'd go to the next customer and I'd be like, "Do you know the coffee tastes a little bit like dark chocolate?" And he'd say to me, "But you have this fantastic crema." And I go to the next customer and I go, "Did you know that the coffee tastes like dark chocolate and it's got a fantastic crema?" And that's literally how I learned to sell coffee. Naval Ravikant talks about specific knowledge. I love the term specific knowledge. If you take enough time in a field or an endeavor or in multiple endeavors and you're able to take that knowledge and apply it, because I think knowledge without application, there's no point. What's the point? You want to be able to apply it to something, don't you? You need that ingenuity and that creativity that you were talking about. So, lost my train of thought. So back to, where was I? Yeah.
And your application of knowledge.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's just carry on with the story in that regard. Nightclub, made all my money back, coffee business, started in the coffee, actually managed to build it. It's 18 years later. We supply a couple of hundred outlets. We do tons in terms of product that we do, but I'm sort of like a squirrel with ADHD. I really struggle to do the same thing over and over again, and it's probably my biggest strength and my biggest weakness, in that I'm able to multitask, and I'm able to run across several businesses at once. So as we speak, I'm involved in the coffee business. I'm involved in a software development company that sort of does virtual and augmented reality. We supply a lot of minds with that sort of, with training. We have a remote support application. I actually forget the number of businesses that I'm in. It's difficult. I'm going to do a mind map fairly soon, not only for myself, but for people to be able to support me, because quite often they're like, "What are you doing at the moment, Dennis?" And we're busy launching an energy drink. Everyone's like, "Yeah, wait and see." Energy drink is just another sector where you're waiting for punishment. It's a race to the bottom in terms of price. But I think what I love is the challenge. I love the ability to prove myself when the odds are against you. And I think that that's the really big part of what we were talking about in terms of excellence and perseverance. So I'm busy writing a book. I'm calling it Stubbornness, Stupidity, Focused Action, and Perseverance. And I really do think, if I'll just elaborate on those a little bit before I leave you be. When I look at stubbornness, I link it to a goal. Quite often we set ourselves goals and then we change the goal. And what's happened is you put all this effort into something and then it becomes irrelevant at the end. So when I talk about stubbornness, I think stubbornness in terms of getting to what you want. And you all have that here, which is amazing. You've put in time to get to where you want, and we're obviously here for a prize giving, which means you've excelled at what you've done. So the way I look at a goal is, if I have a destination and I need to go to Cape Town, I also need a route. I need to know how to get there. And if this goal keeps on shifting and it goes from from Cape Town to Durban to Orange Free State to Bloemfontein, whatever, then what am I actually doing? My actions are not going to achieve anything. Very often in life, you're going to get hurdles between where you are and where you need to go. The only mathematical constant in my mind is that life is always going to be good and life is always going to be bad. You can look at it as a graph. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. You could be in an amazing period, you get cancer. You are driving down the road and you're in a fantastic place, you have an accident. What I can absolutely guarantee you is that it's always going to be hard. and it's actually always going to be easy. And I think the way we define ourselves is how we deal with the hard. When we're able to cope with the hard and be appreciative and grateful of the hard and learn the lessons in the hard, being able to understand that this is where swords are forged, in the hottest fire, that's where the success happens for me. So I find that being able to keep my goal constant and my route sometimes shifting, I might hit a puddle on the way and I need to change my route, or I get somewhere and there's a closed sign, but at least I always know that my goal is the same, and that makes a huge difference. I call that stubbornness. Stupidity, you're always going to encounter the naysayers. So for me, I cannot count the amount of people in my life that have told me you won't be able to do this or you won't be able to achieve it. The US military uses a beautiful term. They go, lead, follow, or get out the way. I use this often. Lead, follow, or get out the way. But there's the fourth person that doesn't want to lead, doesn't want to follow, doesn't want to get out the way, but they're really happy to sit on the sidelines and tell you how bad everything is. The naysayers, the criticism, the pessimists. Those people, most of the time, have not achieved anything in their existences. So for me, it's really around being able to put that out and be able to do what you need to do. Now, I'm not saying be an optimist. I'm saying be a realistic optimist. And especially if you're in your own business. So if, obviously my level of understanding and my reference at this point has always been in my own business. And if I didn't have an element of optimistic realism, I would go home and want to shoot myself every night. I wouldn't be able to cope with what I have to deal with. So that for me is my stupidity side. The focused action is really very similar to what I was talking about in terms of goals, but incrementally so. Being able to really see your way to where you need to be. And that for me becomes focused action. Because if you want to become an Olympic sprinter, you can't do it by playing tennis. You're not going to be able to become an Olympic sprinter if you're a fantastic ballerina. So you really, depending on the achievement that you want, to the result you want, to the goal that you're going for, focused action for me is absolutely critical. And then my most important one, which is the one that you were talking about earlier, is the perseverance. Life's never going to give you anything. Life does not come to you with presents. It doesn't say, here, take this, it's amazing. Maybe sometimes it does, maybe you get lucky, maybe you're in the right place at the right time, but it's not realistic. Life's not going to do that. It doesn't come with presents. What happens is, you need to persevere. I think of it like, maybe some of you have seen Survivor here, and they always do that hanging onto the bar situation. They go, the last person hanging onto the bar is the person that wins this particular challenge. I see life and business very much that way. I will hold on to that bar longer than anyone in this room, regardless of my fitness level. And I will train to hold on to that bar in my specific industry and my field, and no one will hold on longer than I can. And I think that for me, that means I will be the last man standing. Now, I'm not preaching a theory of non-abundance. I'm not saying that I have to win at anyone else's expense, and I'm not saying that because I win, other people lose. I can only relatively control myself. I can't control you, I can't control my competition, I can't control any of that. My only ability within my existence is to control what's 5 meters in front of me. And that really is the only thing I have within my control. So I will outlast anybody in terms of perseverance. And I think that might be my biggest trait. To be able to put yourself into a situation which is hard, and you know it's going to be hard, and you're going to have all these obstacles and all these difficulties that are going to hit you, and coming out of with your degrees, and when you go into your jobs, and you're going to see in life, it's not easy all the time. I just have a problem when people give up. I have a problem when people have excuses to themselves. When people are going, it wasn't my fault, it was his fault, her fault, it was my environment, it was my situation, I was brought up like this, I had this happen to me when I was young, my father had cancer. I don't care. I know that sounds terrible to say, but the only thing you can do for your own existence is be able to improve on your set of standards, on your abilities, on your skills, on your actions. And I know I sound very bad when I say that, but I think that quite often we think it might be a little bit easier than it actually is. On the flip side, is it a journey? Is it fun? Is it amazing? I think that's all down to your mentality and your attitude. If you can appreciate it, be grateful for it, and love it, whether it's good or whether it's bad, it will only eventually end in a good result for you. So yeah, I don't know how long I've been. I talk quite a lot. So yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the fact that you have me here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the prizes that are going to get given out tonight.
I'll give you this, Dennis, with thanks, grateful thanks. You've been a great friend to the school, and we really enjoyed your speech. We really did.